You wake up to the sound of something heavy ticking in the dark. For a moment you do not know where you are. The air smells of old incense and metal, and cloth that has not been washed in too long. Your eyes open to a ceiling, painted with faded gold. Angels and suns stare down with cracked eyes, their outlines softened by smoke and time. Your body feels wrong, heavy in places it should not be, slow in ways it has never been. Your hands are not the hands you remember. They are larger, knotted, lined with fine white scars. A ring of dark metal bites into one finger, engraved with a symbol you somehow know belongs to a line of rulers that stretches back for centuries. Your chest rises and falls in a slow, weighted rhythm. You feel the rasp of age and drink in your throat, even though you do not remember the last time you swallowed anything. You push yourself up. The sheets around you are silk, but they have the stiffness of fabric that has seen too much sweat and not enough care. The bed is wide enough to hold 6 people. It holds only you. At the edge of the mattress, a robe waits, deep blue with a border of gold thread. You know how to shrug it over your shoulders before you even think about it. Your muscles remember the motion. As your feet touch the cold floor, something else settles on your head. It is not an object, at least not at first. It is a feeling, a weight that sits above your eyes, pressing down on your brow. When you raise a hand, your fingers meet smooth metal, a band set with a single dull stone. A crown. The word arrives in your mind as if it has always been there. You stand and the world tilts. It is not vertigo. It is the flood of knowledge that rushes in now that you are upright. You know the names of the servants who sleep in the next hall. You know the route of the guards who march along the walls outside. You know the number of coins in the palace treasury, down to the last bar of silver. You know how many men you sent to their deaths last year. The knowledge does not come as numbers on a page. It comes as feelings, as impressions. You remember a man kneeling, begging for mercy. You remember ignoring him because you were tired. You remember signing a decree that took land from farmers and handed it to a noble who had flattered you. You remember the sound of distant streets at night, not as music or comfort, but as something you ordered others to manage, to quiet, to control. You walk across the chamber in slow steps. Tall windows loom along one wall, covered in heavy curtains. When you pull one back, grey light spills in. Morning, or what passes for morning in this place. The sky above the city is the colour of old bone. The sun struggles behind a veil of smoke and dust. Below, the capital of your empire sprawls in layers. Inner walls, outer walls, markets, temples, barracks. From this height it could be beautiful. From this height it should be beautiful. Once perhaps it was. Now you see the places where the roofs sag. You see whole blocks of rooftops patched with canvas instead of tile. You see the dry bed of a canal that should be full of clear water. You see fires where there should be fountains. You feel something in your chest that does not belong to the old king. A tightness, a sickness that has nothing to do with age. The word that rises is guilt, but it lands on a mind that is not used to carrying it. The memories that live in this body push back. They whisper that the drought was not your fault. The neighbouring kingdoms poisoned the river. The merchants cheated the tax. The soldiers were lazy. The people were ungrateful. You know from somewhere that is still you that excuses are easy. You also know that a city does not decay overnight. It takes years of neglect, years of choices made for comfort and instead of service, fear instead of courage. Behind you a door opens. A servant stands there, eyes on the floor. He is thin but not starving, dressed in clean but simple cloth. You sense his fear before he speaks. It is a sharp thing, like the smell of vinegar in the air. "Your Majesty," he says, "the council waits. They say the hour is late." The hour is late, you think, and not just for the meeting. You hear the words through the ears of a man who has made people tremble with a glance. You feel the expectation in the servant's posture. You should shout. You should scold. You should complain about being disturbed. You do none of those things. "Thank you," you say instead, and your own voice surprises you. It is rough but softer than he expects. His head jerks up for a moment, enough that you catch his eyes. They are brown and tired. There is a scar along his jaw, the kind you get from a blade that missed by inches. He does not know where to put your gratitude. It is not a language he has heard from this mouth before. He bows too quickly, stammers, and backs out of the room as if you might change your mind and throw something. You are left alone again with the view of the city, and the slow, heavy beat of the heart in your chest. Walking to the council chamber feels like walking through evidence. Every hall, every carved column, every faded banner bears marks of decisions this body has made. In one corner, a statue of some ancient hero stands with a broken sword. No one has bothered to mend it. Along another wall, a line of tapestries tells the Empire's rise, thread by thread, up until the last few decades. The final panel hangs half-finished, threads trailing like veins that were never tied off. Guards stand at intervals, armoured and straight-backed. They bow their heads as you pass, but their eyes remain flat. Respect is there because the uniform demands it, not because the heart offers it. You feel an old habit trying to rise, a desire to test them, to snap a command and watch them scramble. But you let it pass. You are still learning how to wear this borrowed role. The council chamber is a long room with high windows and a table shaped like a horseshoe. At the far end is the throne, a chair of black wood with arms carved like snarling beasts. You lower yourself into it and feel the shape of it digging into your shoulders, guiding you into a posture of command. Around the table, your advisors wait. The Chancellor sits closest, a small man with quick eyes and fingers stained with ink. He smells faintly of spices and fear. The General, broad-shouldered and scarred, wears armour even here, as if the walls might attack. The High Priest drapes himself in pale cloth and gold, his rings catching the light every time he moves his hands. The Treasurer is the quietest, watching everyone else with a cautious gaze. They bow in turn, mouths forming the usual phrases. Your Radiance, Your Majesty, Light of the Empire. Each title falls onto your ears like an old coin dropped on a stone floor. The Chancellor is the first to speak. Of course he is. We must speak of the Western provinces, he says, unrolling a map. The harvests there have failed 3 years in a row. We have raised taxes to cover the shortfall, but collection has become difficult. Difficult in this case means that tax collectors have gone missing. You know this because the word calls up an image from the king's memory, a report written in careful script, describing broken carts, burned records, and heads on pikes. The king who wrote that report laughed when he read it. You can feel the echo of that laugh in your chest like a ghost trying to climb up your throat. The general clears his throat. We should send a stronger hand, he says. A regiment to remind them who feeds them. Fear is easier to carry than loyalty. Once this line would have earned a nod, maybe even a smile. Now it makes your stomach clench. You look at the map, at the western provinces marked in faded ink. You picture dry fields, cracking earth, children with hollow eyes. You picture soldiers marching through those fields, taking what little grain remains. Tell me, you say slowly, how much grain sits in our own stores? The treasurer blinks, surprised to be included so early. We have reserves, he says cautiously. Enough to last the palace and the city guard through winter, if rationed. Less if we maintain current rations. Does the palace need more than the people? You ask. The question is simple. It drops into the room like a stone into still water. Silence follows, broken only by the distant tick of that same slow clock. The high priest smiles with lips that do not reach his eyes. The gods favour order, he says. If the palace weakens, the empire crumbles. We must protect the centre so that it may continue to rule. You hear the logic. You also hear the comfort in it. Protect the centre. Protect yourself. Always place your own survival above all. That is how the king before you became the man who could ignore the cries outside his windows. You do not answer them right away. Instead, you listen to your own thoughts, to the strange mix of this king's habits and your own conscience. Power, you realise, has been used here like a wall. Every problem was something to keep out, not something to step toward. Send word to the western provinces, you say at last. We will open the palace reserves. Food will go out with the next caravan. Taxes there are to be reduced, not raised. The Chancellor's mouth falls open. The General looks offended, as if you have insulted the very idea of strength. The Treasurer looks pale, already doing numbers in his head. The priest watches you with new interest, like a snake tasting the air. My lord, the Chancellor says carefully, such generosity will be seen as weakness. The nobles here will complain. The people there will learn they can defy you and be rewarded. Or, you say, they will learn that their lives matter more than the gold in this room. The words feel strange and right at the same time. They do not fit the groove worn into the mind of the old king, and you can feel that resistance. It is like trying to steer a wagon whose wheels have been stuck in the same rut for years. The wood creaks, the horses hesitate, but movement is still possible. The meeting goes on, talk moving to borders and debts and whispered threats from neighbouring lands. You listen more than you speak. When you do speak, you try to ask questions instead of giving orders. You ask how many prisoners sit in the dungeons without trial. You ask how many coins vanish between the treasury and the roads that need repair. You ask why the temple demands offerings from people who cannot feed their families. Each question peels back a layer. Under the surface of your empire is a nest of small, selfish choices that have grown together into something bigger. No one at this table thinks of themselves as wicked. Each has a reason, a story that makes them the hero of their own mind. The general believes he keeps the nation safe. The chancellor believes he holds the web of law together. The priest believes he protects the souls of the people. The treasurer believes he keeps the numbers from falling into the red. In their stories, harm is always someone else's fault, just as it used to be in yours. When the council is dismissed, you retreat to the king's private study. The room is lined with shelves that bend under the weight of scrolls and ledgers. A great desk dominates the centre, its surface scarred by years of writing, stamping, and the occasional angry blow. Drawers open beneath your hands with the ease of long practice. You find letters from other rulers, their formal compliments hiding sharp requests. You find reports from spies, thick with rumour. You find old decrees that raised taxes, banned meetings, and silenced critics. Some are written in your own careful hand. At the back of one drawer, under a false bottom, you find a journal. The leather cover is cracked along the spine. The first pages are written in a different tone than the rest. They begin with hope. A younger voice speaks in these lines, one that wanted to be just and wise. It speaks of plans to repair roads, to shorten the workday for farmers, to open the palace to petitions once a week. It speaks of dreams of clean water in every district and schools that teach more than obedience. As you flip forward, the handwriting grows sharper. The words change. You see phrases like necessary measure and for the stability of the realm. You see entries that describe how a small protest was met with force and how easy it was to sign the order once. The next time, it was easier. You read about a night when the young king could not sleep, haunted by the image of blood in the street. The entry after that simply notes, more security needed. The one after that lists the new powers given to the city guard. The fear is still there, but it has been wrapped in steel. You sit back and let the journal fall closed. This, you realise, is how corruption often works. Not as a single leap into darkness, but as a steady walk, each step defended by a story. I had no choice. They forced my hand. It would have been worse otherwise. Step by step, the person telling the story stops seeing themselves at all. They see only the role, the throne, the crown. A knock at the door pulls you out of your thoughts. When you call for the visitor to enter, an old woman steps inside. She does not bow as deeply as the others. Her hair is white, her back bent, but her eyes are clear. "My king," she says, and there is a warmth in her voice that no one else has used. Memories rise at the sight of her. She was your nurse when you were a boy. She smuggled sweets into your room when tutors bored you. She scolded you when you were cruel to the other children at court. She is perhaps the last person alive who remembers you before the crown settled fully on your head. "I heard you were awake," she says. "You slept long, longer than usual." "I had a strange dream," you answer. "It is not entirely a lie." She studies your face, then moves closer, ignoring protocol. "Your eyes look different," she murmurs. "Softer. Or maybe I am just an old fool." You feel a strange urge to tell her everything, to confess that you are not the man she raised, or that you are and you are not. Instead, you ask her a question. "What kind of boy was I?" you say. "When I was young." She smiles and the lines around her mouth deepen. "Trouble," she says. "Curious. You asked why about everything. You shared your food with the kitchen boys. You threw a plate at a tutor once, but you apologised later. You cried when a bird died in your hands." "And later?" you ask quietly. Her smile fades. "Later you grew busy," she says. "The crown eats time. You listened less. You shouted more. Not at first. It was like watching a fever take. Hold, Some days you were yourself again. Some days you were harder. She meets your eyes without fear. I have not liked every choice you made, she says, but I never stopped hoping you would remember who you were. The words cut deeper than any enemy blade. You dismiss her gently, promising to call for her again. When she leaves, you sit alone with the idea that there is a version of this man who could have turned out differently. Later, when dusk paints the city in iron and ash, you make a decision that would once have been unthinkable. You ask for a simple cloak and plain boots. You order the guards at a side gate to stand down for an hour and say nothing. Then you step out into your own capital, without crown or retinue. The streets breathe a different air than the palace. It smells of smoke, sweat and stew that has more water than meat. Stalls line the alleys, selling bread that is thinner than it should be, cloth that has been mended too many times. You move among your people like a stranger. They do not recognize you. Why would they? The old king rarely left his walls except in grand processions that turned him into a distant symbol. Now you are just another tired man in a worn cloak. You listen. You sit on the edge of a dry fountain and listen. Two women argue over the price of grain. One curses the king, saying he hoards food and sends soldiers instead of help. The other shakes her head and says the king's not even real, that the council rules everything. A child nearby plays with a wooden sword, slashing at invisible foes and shouting, "I am the king, you must obey." His friends boo and pretend to pelt him with stones. You buy a bowl of soup from a vendor whose stall leans against a cracked wall. He tells you that once, long ago, the king walked among the people in plain clothes, handing out coins and listening to complaints. He laughs when he says it, as if repeating a story about a myth. Not this one, he adds. This one built higher walls. Each word is a mirror held up to your face. Each complaint, each bitter joke, reveals more about the image you have left on this city. It is not the image the young prince dreamed of leaving. It is a mask made of fear and distance. By the time you walk back toward the palace, night has settled over the capital. Few lamps burn in the houses. Oil is expensive. Stars struggle to pierce the haze above the rooftops. You feel the weight of your steps, the weight of your choices, and the weight of the empire itself, pressing down like the crown you left on its stand. In the days that follow, your waking mind and the old king's habits wrestle for control. News arrives of a fever in the poorer districts. It burns through narrow streets and shared rooms. At the same time, a group of border lords refuses to send their usual tribute, claiming they must feed their own. The council urges you to act with force, quarantine the sick with no support, send troops to seize the grain, make examples, remind everyone who rules. Their advice is polished by years of practice. It sits snugly in the grooves of how things have always been done. You sit on the throne and think of the boy who cried over a dead bird. You think of the journal entries that turned sorrow into policy. You think of the market boy pretending to be you and his friends laughing as they throw imaginary stones. Power has made you distant. Fear has made you harsh. Pride has made you deaf. These are not curses laid on you by some dark wizard. They are habits, fed every time you chose what was easy over what was right. Seeing that clearly hurts. But there is a strange kind of freedom in it too. If this is the result of choices, then new choices can lead somewhere else. You order that healers, not soldiers, be sent into the sick districts, carrying herbs, clean water, and what medicine the palace can spare. You command that the palace kitchens cook great pots of stew to be carried out to the squares. You know it will not be enough. But it is more than nothing. For the border lords, you choose a different path. You send letters, not threats, offering temporary relief from tribute in exchange for detailed records of their harvests and aid to neighbouring villages. The general grinds his teeth. The priest mutters about discipline. The chancellor warns of precedent. Let this be our new precedent, you say. We answer hunger with food, not fire. Whispers spread through the palace. Some say you have lost your mind. Others, those who remember the boy prince, say that you have found it again. In dark corners, nobles who grew rich under the old ways begin to gather, voices low and angry. If the king changes the rules, their comfortable games will end. One night, you find a letter slipped under your door. It warns you that certain members of your council are planning to remove you, quietly if possible, violently if needed. The old king would have answered such a threat with immediate purges. Arrest them all. Have the most likely traitors dragged out at dawn. Make the halls run with fear again. You stand by the window, the letter in your hand, and feel the temptation like a tide. Violence promises simplicity. If you strike first, you will be safe. That is what your fear tells you. But you have seen where that path leads. Each time you kill to stay in control, you teach everyone that this is how power works. You turn your empire into a place where only the ruthless can breathe. Instead, you summon the council in full daylight. You sit not on the throne but at the table with them. The change in position makes them uneasy. It makes you more human. You lay the letter on the table where all can see it. Someone thinks the answer to change is to cut off the head that chose it, you say. Perhaps they forget that new heads grow from the same roots. If I fall and nothing else changes, someone just like me will rise here again. Maybe worse. The Chancellor looks sick. The General looks angry. The priest looks thoughtful. The Treasurer looks frightened. None of them admits to writing the letter. Perhaps none of them did. Perhaps one of them did. Perhaps they all knew. I will not play that game any longer, you continue. This empire is dying. It is not dying because our neighbours hate us. It is dying because we have choked it from within. With greed, with fear, with pride. I have been part of that. I will not pretend otherwise. You see the shock in their faces. Rulers do not say such things out loud. They blame enemies, fate, the will of heaven, anything but themselves. From this day, you say, decisions will not be made by my word alone. We will form a council of cities and provinces. Representatives chosen by their own people will sit here and speak for them. We will open the records of tax and law for all to see. No more secret decrees, no more hidden prisons. The general protests that this will weaken the throne. The priest warns that too many voices lead to confusion. The Chancellor insists that common people cannot understand matters of state. You fear losing your grip, you tell them. So did I. The tighter I held, the more everything slipped away. We will try another way. Change does not come like a sudden storm. It comes like the slow turning of a great wheel. In the months that follow, there are setbacks. Some of the first chosen representatives are fools. Some are selfish. Old habits cling to the halls like smoke. But each time someone speaks in open council about an empty granary or a corrupt guard captain, the air clears a little more. The people in the streets do not cheer overnight. Many have lost too much to trust words. They wait to see if food reaches them, if sick children are treated, if soldiers stop beating them for sport. When they begin to see those changes, even in small ways, their shoulders loosen a little. They look up when the palace bells ring instead of flinching. You feel yourself changing too. The temptation to slip back into old ways never fully leaves. Some days when news is bad and the council is slow and arguments run in circles, you feel the old heat in your blood. The urge to stand, shout and bend everyone to your will. But now you recognise that urge as what it is. Fear wearing the mask of strength. On those days you remember the market boy pretending to be you. You remember your old nurse's voice. You remember the journal lines where sorrow turned into cold orders. You ask for a pause. You walk in the gardens where new shoots push up through tired soil. You breathe until your hands stop shaking. Then you return and listen again. Years pass. The empire is still not the shining thing the young prince once wanted it to be. It may never be. Droughts still come. Borders still need guarding. People still make selfish choices. But the decline slows. Some places even begin to heal. A repaired aqueduct brings clean water to a district that has not tasted it in a decade. A school opens in a village that once only knew the whip. A festival returns to a town that had forgotten how to sing. You grow older in this second life. Your hair greys. Your hands tremble when you lift the crown. But the weight on your brow feels different now. It is still heavy, but it no longer feels like a wall between you and the world. It feels like a reminder. One evening, you sit on a simple bench, overlooking the city. No attendants stand nearby. The sky is clear for once and the stars are sharp. Lamps glow in the streets like grounded constellations. You can hear distant laughter, mixed with tired sighs and everyday clatter. Life, imperfect and stubborn, moves on. You think back to the moment you woke up in this body and in this story. You remember the confusion, the wave of memories that were not yours and yet were. You remember seeing the empire's sickness laid out beneath your window. You have learned something about corruption. It is not a poison poured into a pure cup all at once. It is more like dust settling slowly, layer by layer, every time you say, "This little wrong is not so bad," or "I am too tired to care," or "At least it keeps me safe." Over years, that dust thickens into something hard. It covers your eyes until you cannot see who you were or what you once promised to be. You have also learned something about power. It does not have to mean pressing others down so that you can stand taller. It can mean using your height to lift, your reach to pull others back from the edge. That does not make you a saint. It only makes you responsible. You know that if someone else were to wake up in your place tomorrow, with your memories and your regrets, they would face the same choice you did, to pretend everything was fine, or to look at the cracks and act, to hold on tighter, or to open the hand. As the night grows deeper, you let your eyes close. You listen to your breathing, slower now, to the faint murmur of your city. Somewhere out there, a child is playing at being king, bossing friends around in a courtyard. Somewhere else, a council of villagers argues about a road that needs fixing, no longer afraid to speak. You cannot watch over every street or correct every mistake. You are only one person, even if you sit on a throne. But you have turned your face toward a different kind of rule. You have chosen again and again to notice when fear tries to dress itself up as wisdom. You have learned to hear the old king's habits as echoes, not commands. Perhaps one day, the empire will finally fall. All things do. But if that day comes, you hope it will be remembered not only for how it died, but for how it tried to live near the end. For a ruler who woke up inside his own story and decided that even in a failing world, it was still worth doing better. You sit with that thought, letting it settle in your chest like a small, steady light. Whatever comes after, whoever you were before, right now you are a king who has learned to see. And in the quiet between one breath and the next, you understand that this, more than any crown, is the real beginning of your rule.